If thinking about your childhood experiences makes you emotional, sometimes, raise your hand. I was banking on that. I was banking on that. From conception to 18 is arguably the most important period of our lifetime. And it's no wonder. Every person on this planet, including the 100 billion that came before us, had to make a mandatory stop there. And there is nothing, I repeat, nothing that brings us closer together and further apart than the experiences of our childhood. Allow me to elaborate using the day before my sweet 16th birthday. I'll never forget my brother Rodney speaking 7 words to me as if he had done me a favor. He said, "I beat up your little boyfriend yesterday." I was gutted, but I had to act like I didn't care. So I nonchalantly replied, "He's not my boyfriend anymore," which was the truth. The second thing I remember about that day is coming home from the mall after doing my shopping. I was so excited to come home to a big surprise. But it wasn't for my sweet 16th birthday. Instead, I came home to friends, family members, neighbors, and even some strangers gathered together in my front yard, grieving, crying. And then I locked eyes on my mother. Her hands were barely holding on to a lit cigarette. Her knees were buckled. And then somebody approached me and said, "That boy you used to date, he shot your brother this morning. And it's not looking too good." We hear breaking news stories like this in the media every single day. But the breaking news for me was, those 7 words that my brother Rodney has spoke to me that morning would be the last that I would ever hear from him. He was unalived at the age of 20 by a 19-year-old man that had 24 hours to calm his upset, and he chose violence. If my brother had fewer adverse childhood experiences, he might be here with us today. It turns out that adverse childhood experiences are traumatic experiences that have worldwide implications. And my brother's story was just the tip of an iceberg. You might not believe that there are actually 15 categories of traumatizing experiences like the one that I went through, and they are hurtling forward like a humanity-ending asteroid. As I recall this experience with my brother Rodney, I'll never forget the tears when my mother got the news that he would no longer be with us. Because adverse childhood experiences have the ability to produce chemical reactions that range from sadness to anger, from addiction to disease, and even accessing the common sense regions of our brain. Which brings me to saying, if the shooter had fewer aces, my brother might still be here with me today. Now, if you are hearing these 3 words together for the first time, you are among the elite. Because there are people like Oprah Winfrey, John Legend, and even Taraji P. Henson using their platforms to campaign for ACE awareness. ACE awareness has the potential to empower more love, more connection, and more common sense thinking, something we could all use a lot more of. In 2020, I was lucky enough to learn the language of ACEs, and not only did it resurrect my own life, it reconciled the broken one that had been created with my mother and daughter. To he who has ears, let them hear that it is never too late to learn and do something about adverse childhood experiences. Now, you might be sitting here wondering, what are they? What are they? So I do want to give a disclaimer. On the screen coming up are going to be 15 categories of things that happen or can happen to children under the age of 18. Some of these might be activating to you, especially if you're a part of the data and a part of the people that had to grow up with these experiences. Please take care of yourself as you hear the remainder of this presentation. The first category of the 15 are traumatizing experiences that a child has to come home to. Are they going home to a parent that struggles with mental illness? Are they going home where there's domestic violence in the house? Is someone in the home struggling with substance misuse? Are they witnessing people going to jail, be arrested, or even prison? And lastly, is there abandonment issues, whether it's by divorce, death, or deportation? The second category that you see on the screen is, how is the child being treated? Is anybody emotionally or physically neglecting or abusing the child? Is anybody touching the child sexually or inappropriately? The last category of these 15 ACEs that are hurtling towards Earth like an unstoppable asteroid happen to be what the child sees when they walk out of their home. Are they being bullied? What does their neighborhood look like? Are there housing instability issues? What is the access to nutrition? Is there poverty? Is there violence? And then lastly, are they witnessing discrimination or experiencing discrimination or racism in any form? As you lock your eyes on whether it's me or those 15 categories, I need you to know that 2/3 of us in this room, the U.S. and the adults in the U.S., have experienced at least one of those categories of ACEs. While another 40 million, if you do the math, that is 1 in every 6 people leaving home with at least 4 or more of those categories. And if you're like my brother Rodney and I, you might be amongst the 5 million that left home with 6 or more. I would have aced this test with 14 out of 15, except my mom had this superpower, which was, no matter what it takes, my children will always have a roof over their head, even if it means I have to stay in an abusive relationship, i.e., domestic violence. The stories behind ACEs are personal and painful, although it's easy to point fingers at bad parenting. This is not about bad parenting, because science tells us ACEs not only get under our skin, they are in the roots, systemically, and literally on our nerves. You probably know this already, but a lot of people had to, let's say, download their data in order for you and I to be here. A lot of people had to download their data, lots of great-grandparents, and about 14 generations ago, before the pedigree collapse, our great-grandparents had to do what they did in order for you and I to sit here today. Why do I share that with you? Because science is now revealing to us that the data, the birds and the bees, that our grandparents downloaded to us could have possibly passed fragments of their own unresolved childhood trauma responses onto the offspring genes, and that's us. Some scientists are saying that it can be passed down from anywhere from 3 to 14 generations. So not only are we dealing with our own mess, we're also carrying the experiences of our ancestors who may not have ever had an opportunity to calm their nervous system. That was my aha moment. I said, this is generational science. This is not generational curses. And it was in 2020 that I learned for the first time, after being a school principal, a classroom teacher, and even a parent, I learned about this study. And some might say it was too late, but it wasn't. It was 2020. Right place at the right time, just like you are today. I'm working late. I'm standing at a copy machine. And out of nowhere, an abandoned piece of paper attacked me, jumped right off the glass plate and into my hands. You can call it a sign or a coincidence, but I answered the yes/no questions on that questionnaire. And I was like, finding like Nemo, I'm taking this bait. And guess what? Not only did I discover my purpose through my 14 ACEs, I was exposed to 3 new revelations along the way. The first revelation was that this study came out in the late 1990s, and it was on the shelves of the academic world in the medical field. The second revelation that I learned is that our government, they got pretty deep pockets. I'm like, money to burn, honey. They got money to burn, because since the 1990s, our government, our tax-paying dollars, has invested more than $200 million more studying the findings of the original findings. 200 million, I want you to bookmark that. With the most recent one coming back in December of 2023, telling us that ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences, contribute to a 14 trillion with a T annually burden on our economy. Wait, there's more. If you happen to be one of the people that left home with 4 or more of these things, they pointed fingers at you and said, you are the heaviest burden on that budget due to lost healthy life years. Think of my brother dying at 20. He could not contribute to society in the dust. And also direct medical expenses. Those things started to add up. The third revelation is quantity matters. The number of ACEs that we leave home with matters. Why? Well, the science says that the more of them that you have, the easier it is to predict how your life outcomes are going to turn out. The second thing that was startling from that research was that if you leave home with 6 or more of those categories of ACEs, your lifespan could be reduced by 20 years in comparison to somebody with none. And believe it or not, those people do exist. The third thing, my biggest aha moment, was that if you leave home with 4 or more ACEs, not only are you going to be predisposed to preventable diseases, the menu of poor choices and side effects that will be waiting for you when you leave your home, they're bottomless, but I stopped at 11. Predictions like these could make someone extremely wealthy. Take number 5, for example. Poverty, financial problems. Poverty, financial problems. I was one of those people who found myself working and taking loans from predatory lenders, borrowing money that not only did I not have the common sense not to pay back, I didn't have the means to pay it back. That brings me to the solution, which is you. You are the solution. Although ACEs may not infect everyone, they affect everyone. Believe it or not, there are 37% of adults in the U.S. who somehow their parents managed to avoid all those categories of ACEs. And in my Kendrick Lamar voice, even though they're not like us, if they can do it, we all can do it. Why? Because ACEs are predictable. We just saw it, right? And if they can be predicted, they can be prevented. And if they can be prevented, they can be treated if enough people are educated on them. To reduce the dose of traumatizing experiences could unlock human potential, period. I could stop there, but I won't because I got 5 more minutes. To reduce the dose of traumatizing experiences, not only could it unlock human potential, it could potentially give us those neighbors we've always wanted to live next door to, or possibly the kids we've always wanted to raise, or maybe even the spouses we've always wanted to marry. A reduction in household disharmony, neglect, and abuse could mean fewer prisons, fewer preventable diseases, fewer rapes, and fewer gone too soon heartbreaks like that one of my brother. To reduce community ACEs could look like effective bullying and parenting programs, violence reduction programs, healthier nutrition options when we know people are waking up in poverty. And what if, by chance, we required every city official to go through some form of microaggression training? We would all have neighborhoods we wouldn't mind driving through or living in if that was the case. Ironically, we can solve this problem through death. An acronym, DEATH, where each letter in DEATH represents an action that either one of you could take, looking at either of the 15 categories, leaving your home, driving to donate your time. If you have the money, donate it too, but develop your skills and invest right here locally in your own communities. That's where we start. The E represents engaging and empowering people around you, especially the ones in your home, investing in self-care skills and nonviolent skills that allow us to get along better together. A, accessing. If you're going to be online, scrolling, using your phone for social media, find an online community forum that is spreading awareness on early life adversity and what can be done about it right here in your community. T, what if we teamed up with police officers, schools, politicians, teachers, doctors, lawyers, and even peer support groups to really transform how ACEs impact our neighborhoods? And then lastly, H, what if we could honor our local community nonprofits and organizations that are doing their best just to keep the lights on and to help people who are trying to heal generational trauma on a dime budget? This is what we could be doing right here in our neighborhoods today. And if you got 10 fingers, you can dial, you can pick up a phone and do it, right? A world without ACEs would be a world filled with compassionate people. 1 in 6 people have 4 or more ACEs, and they are literally dying to meet a compassionate person. If it changes, it's biology. If it binds, it's chemistry. If it governs, it's physics. And if it's ACEs, it's all of the above. You could be having this conversation in your community today.